Welcome. In this video, we'll be talking about how to simplify square roots. So to begin with, I want to review a discussion that we had about exponents. So looking at 12 to the fourth and what that means is that we have 4 factors of 12. But let's take the discussion one step further and let's think about how 12 can be broken down. And so using our factoring techniques, what we know is that 12 can be written as 3 times 4. 3 can't be broken down, but 4 can, into 2 times 2. And so what we're left with is that 12 is equal to 2 times 2 times 3. In other words, 12 is made up of 2 factors of 2 and 1 factor of 3. So if I break each of my 4 factors of 12 into the smallest components, each of these 12s can be broken down into 2 factors of 2 and 1 factor of 3. And so now let's count how many factors of 2 we end up with and how many factors of 3 we end up with. Well, if we look at the factors of 2, I've got 2 factors of 2, 4 factors of 2, 6 factors of 2, 8 factors of 2. And I've got 1 factor of 3, 2 factors of 3, 3 factors of 3, and 4 factors of 3. So another way to look at 12 to the fourth power would be to actually look at 12's factors and essentially take 4 of each factor. That's essentially what the fourth power means. It means that we're going to have 4 of each of the factors that make up 12. So we're going to have 4 2's. We're going to have another 4 2's. And we're going to have another 4 factors of 3. So this is just another way to think about it. And so my final answer here is the same as my answer here. It's just another way to think about it. So when I'm doing something to a power, an exponent, that just means that's how many of each factor I end up with. So I want you to keep that in mind because I'm going to write something that probably is going to look a little funny. Which is, now what we're going to look at is that. So I now have an exponent that is not a whole number. In fact, it's a fraction. So let's take a look and see if we can interpret that. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to break down 25 into what it's actually equal to in terms of its factors. So if I do a factor tree for 25, I know I can break that down into 5 times 5, and that's as far as I can go. So 25 can be broken into 5 times 5, and now let's think about what this exponent meant. So over here it meant this is how many of each factor I was left with. So I was left with 4 2's, I was left with another 4 factors of 2, and I was left with 4 factors of 3. Okay, well, what this means is I'm supposed to be left with half of the factors that I started with. So since I've got 5 times 5, the only factor of 25 is 5. And since I have 2 of them, half of the factors of 5 would leave me with only 1 5. So 25 to the 1/2 power is 5. Because if I take half of its factors, that only leaves me with 1 5. Let's do another example. Suppose I have 49 to the 1/2 power. Well, 49 again breaks down into 7 times 7. And 7 times 7 is 7 squared, so that means I have 2 factors of 7. Well, if I take half of those factors, that's going to leave me with 1 factor of 7. So my answer is just 7. Okay, let's do another one. So suppose I have 36 to the 1/2 power. Well, 36 can be broken down into 2 times 2 times 3 times 3. which means that I have 2 squared. I've got 2 factors of 2 and 2 factors of 3. So if I take half of my factors of 2, that leaves me with 1, 2. If I take half of my factors of 3, that leaves me with 1, 3. So overall, I'm left with 1 factor of 2 and 1 factor of 3, which is 6. Okay, the reason why I'm showing you the fractional exponents is because they're used so often in math that there's a symbol invented for them. So 25 to the 1/2 power is how people commonly write this. People commonly write 25 to the 1/2 power as the square root of 25. They mean the same exact thing. So 49 to the 1/2 power is the same as the square root of 49. And as we just found out, the square root of 25 is 5. As we just found out, 49 to the 1/2 power, which is the same as square root of 49, is 7. So let's take a look at how we might apply this to the problems in this section. So the square root of 48, what we're supposed to do is simplify it. So my first step is to factor the number. So in this case, we've got 48. So if we factor 48, that's 6 times 8. And 6 is broken down to 3 times 2. 8 can be broken down to 4 times 2. Can't break down the 2's or the 3's. And so what I'm left with is 48 is equal to 2 times 2 times 2 times 2 times 3. Okay, step 2 in the process is to rewrite as a 1/2 power. So the square root of 48 is nothing more than 48 to the 1/2 power, as we just found out. Step 3 then is to substitute factors for 48. So we've got 48 to the 1/2 power, and we've just found out what 48 is equal to. It's equal to 2 to the 4th times 3 to the 1/2 power. Still. And then the final step is to take half of each factor, if possible. So we've got 2 to the 4th times 3 to the 1/2 power, and I want to take half of each of the factors. So I've got 4 factors of 2. If I take half of those 4 factors, that leaves me with 2 factors of 2. And now I've got a problem. I can't take half the factors of 3 because I only have 1 factor of 3. So what I'm going to do is just leave 3 inside like that. I can't do anything with it. And so now my final answer is I just want to reintroduce the square root again. So 2 squared is 4. And then 3 to the 1/2, that's the same as just writing the square root of 3. So that's my final answer. Okay, let's try number 3. So the first step is to break down 27. So if we break down 27, 27 is 9 times 3, and 9 is 3 times 3. So that means 27 is equal to 3 to the 3rd power. And so now what I'm going to do is, instead of writing it as 20 square root of 27, I'm going to write it as 27 to the 1/2 power. And so that means that I've got 3 to the 3rd to the 1/2 power. Well, I've got a problem again because I can't take half of 3. It's not a whole number answer. So what I'm going to do is, instead of writing it as 3 to the 3rd, I'm going to write it as 3 squared times 3 to the 1st. That's still equal to 3 to the 3rd. It's just now I can actually take half of these factors. So this tells me I've got 2 factors of 3. Half of 2 is 1 factor of 3. And then I'm left with 1/3 underneath. So writing it in square root form gives me 3 on the outside, and then this 3 is still stuck underneath because we couldn't take half of its factors. Okay, I want you to try number 4, pause the video, and then restart when ready. So the first step for number 4, again, you should have broken down 32. If you did, you should have found that 32 is the same as 2 to the 5th power. Okay, but again, we're stuck because I can't take half of 5. So what I'm going to have to do is that same trick I used in number 3 and write 2 to the 5th as 2 to the 4th times 2 to the 1st. I can take half of 4. Half of 4 is 2, so that means I'm going to be left with 2 factors of 2, and then this 2 is stuck because I can't take half of its factors. So what I'm left with is 4 square root of 2.